My name is Carl Varnado. I am from Chicago, Illinois originally. Proud, born and raised, moved to LA, and now I live in Phoenix.
Okay.
I've been in the game industry about 20 something years. Blah 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 blah. I think.
Hmm.
I created a game studio when I was at film school at Columbia College Chicago. I actually have some artwork I could probably show you from that experience. Then I went to Hollywood, worked in film industry for 3 or 4 years. I worked for Bill Duke, his Duke Media for 3 years. And then I decided that I didn't want to stay in Hollywood anymore. So I became a teacher, but I still consult on narrative design. I help create the Black Gaming Foundation, the Black Gaming Awards. It's their 8th year event. We give out awards to people in the game industry for their abilities, talents, recognition points for all the stuff they've done over the course of the years.
Dope. So how did you get to the point where you knew you wanted to do film and, be able to sort of catapult into, doing all these different things? You say you started in film and navigated from there. So how did you even sort of get down that path?
And that's a great question. In undergrad, I was an English major. I went to Benedictine University, and I was in all the activism, Pan-Africanism. I was president. I was all things. Most of my friends thought I was going to become a lawyer because I was so politically active. But I had always been a reader, and I always loved stories. As a kid, I used to win library contests. So I remember freshman year at Benedictine, I was watching something on television, and I was like, "Oh, I think I want to be filmmaking." One of the guys in the room was from China. He was just a Chinese student. Yoko, I think was his name, which we found out later. Yoko was super racist. Like, we didn't know that. And so he was like, he just like mumbled something like, what'd you say? He's like, "You're not gonna make any movies. I wipe my ass with your movies." I was like, "What?" I was like, all offended, like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah." And he just dismissed me. He didn't have a film major. He didn't have a film program. So I just kind of puzzled around with X, Y, and Z. My senior year of film school, Love Jones came out. Love Jones was shot in Chicago. And because we were all super black intelligentsia, like, oh man, poetry.
Yeah.
Everybody want to go. We were all buzzing about the campus, like the greatest movie ever created. And one of the administrators knew the maker because he was from Chicago. Like, I think he dated her daughter or something. Some kind of old connection.
Okay.
So he called him and was like, "Hey, come up to campus and do a talk for us." So he did talk. It was great. He talked, theater. And he had mentioned he went to Columbia College. I graduated next year, lost in the storm, trying to figure out my next part of my life. And I ended up going to Columbia for grad school. That's a long story, but that's a long story how I got into Columbia. I saw Theodore at an event the following year. He came back to Chicago because the guy who created Brown Sugar was doing the presser here, and they had like a ball. And then we had lunch, and he like told me, go for it, And so he had I met him 4 times. He had like a undue influence on my film.
Yeah.
He really encouraged me. So I had screenwriting 1 that first year, and I had not got into the film school, like the graduate school. I was just taking classes. And my friend Joe was like, "Hey man, why don't you go to grad school? Just do like a second BA." He's like, "Just do it. You can just take all of the film classes, none of the gen eds. That takes 2 years." She's like, "Yeah, you be done." And I was like, "Okay, man, that sounds good." So we're having this argument for over an hour, and it's on a Friday. All the kids had left. Everybody had gone. I don't know if you know colleges on Friday afternoons. Nobody's gonna.
Yeah, ain't nobody there.
So they left, and so we were just sitting there. We're about to walk out the room, and on the other side of the hallway is like two reporters with cameras. These guys walking in, and they see us, and they walk over. They're like, "What's going on? Who are you?" Like, some film students. I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. My name is Bob Title, and I'm George Tillman. We're doing a presser for at the time they shot this movie with Cool Gooding Jr. called Men of Honor."
Oh, Men of Honor, yeah, okay.
And so George Tillman's known for Barbershop. That's what he must have made. So Columbia loved George Tillman because he had shot in Chicago. He went to the school. He was the same kind of group as that Love Jones group. They were like, "What are you guys doing right now?" We're like, "Nothing. Come watch our presser." So basically they were like, "Yeah, go finish film." After he had convinced me, Bob Title walked up to me and said, "Be a filmmaker." Like, go So I was like, well, God can't give me any more signals.
Yeah.
So I started trying to do films. I had a roommate that year who was an animator. He was graduating with an animation degree. He was helping me shoot stuff. I wanted to do music videos, commercials. So I knew the manager of E2, which was the place, the club that, had the infamous issue later on in life. And but you don't know, E2 was the second floor. Epitome was the first floor. It was the restaurant. So I went to some of the, I think Antoine went to high school. So we had a party. So that was at E2. I saw the manager there. I was like, hey man, we should commercial for your restaurant. Like, I'm trying to pitch stuff to make money.
Right.
And he's like, why don't you come and meet with me? Me and Trina took the bus over. And then this guy had double booked, triple booked. There was a line. And there was a guy with us. And he was like, so what do you do? This isn't too far off of when I said I want to be a filmmaker. To have me and George Tillman. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a filmmaker. He's like, that's old. You know, he was like, you know what somebody should do? A black video game. So Trinell was sitting next to me and he had said anything. We were leaving. He's like, you know, it's all the same software, right? I was like, what do you mean? Like, they use the same animation software, video games they use in animation. Like, it's called Maya. Like, this is how it works. So I started making phone calls. Because like the way I work is I have really smart friends in certain areas. So I just like pick their brains. I called my boy.
That's what networking is, right?
Yeah.
You know.
So I called my boy. He had a physics degree. He was a super gamer. He had all the systems back then. Like, he gave me all this. So I taught somebody else who was a computer major. So everybody gave me their spill. I called everybody up, had a discussion. Can we do this? Is this possible? Is this viable? And I had just gotten like on-campus job in the computer lab.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I was like, well, so we had a discussion and we created a company. Having no idea. About 3 months in, I realized I had no idea what I was doing. There's a site called Gamma Sutra.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with Gamma Sutra, but Gamma Sutra is a site of gaming information. And back then, it was like the only site of gaming information. You know, you do a business meeting, you have to have a business brief. For film, you have to have a treatment and a script.
Yeah, right.
The video game was called a game design document. And so Gamma Sutra had like a template, how to make a game design document. So I went there several times looking at how to make this game design document. I need this information. And so
now you chat GPT.
Yeah, now you like back then it was not even close to ChatGPT. Yeah. So basically, to make this long story shorter, Gamma Sutra had a link to GDC on the site. So I was like, what is the Game Developers Conference? What is this? And so I clicked on it and I found the volunteer page because it's like $3,000. Even back then it was like $3,000. Me and my friend, the physics guy, got into the program. So we went to GDC and we were completely blown away. What in the same heck is this? You know? And so I have to I got to the Uncle Buck story because I think the influences are important, right? So we had the George Tillman, Bob Title, Theodore on the film side, right? And then we volunteered, and then like I met a couple people that are part of the game industry. But important to the story was at the last day they had like a dinner for the volunteers at a restaurant. And right before dinner, this guy comes to me. He's like, what's up, guys? He's a white guy. Most everybody was white at that particular. He's just super friendly. Like, yes, he starts talking. And he's like, I've been in Japan the last 4 years. I got back to the States. And he keeps talking. And my boy just like, you worked on Virtual Fighter? What do you mean you worked on Virtual Fighter? Like, yeah, I was a complete design person for that. And you feel kind of skeptical at first because he's so casual about it. He's like, yeah. And then he's like, oh, the Drunken Monkey guy, I put that in because I was drunk one night and I watched a drunken guy on television, like the Drunken Monkey movie. You know what I mean? He had watched the movie in real time. He called the CEO like, we got to put this guy in the game. He was the most off the cuff.
Yeah.
And so we left. All right, we could do this. So we worked on the game for 2.5 years. Here's some of the artwork actually from the game. I never showed you people the artwork. You're right. This is an exclusive. Almost never. Let me see if I can preview it. There it is. So this was the artwork. It was called Fire Emblem Destiny. It was a time travel game. It was supposed to be my version of Legend of Zelda.
Okay.
So the main character is infected with nanovirus, and he has to go in and get it fixed. This part, I dressed up a whole lot of Black history stuff that no one had at the time. I was going deep into the archives. They get to the Dogon tribe. I think you saved Solomon's son.
Okay. Yeah.
But halfway through, my partners really wanted to make a racing game. So they were like, hey, we're going to do a racing game. Like the idea, but this is 2002, 2003, 2004. There's no Black Panther. There's no template for a Black franchise. So I was like, all right, everybody bounced. I remember I had the Pan-African experience at undergrad. So I was like all about Black. But I was a geek too. And everybody was like, yeah, that's not going to work. So I was like, all right, whatever. So then I went to Hollywood. I worked in Hollywood for a little while. Came back. I finished my master's degree. Now in media management. And my thesis was how to do a transmedia Black franchise. So now I want to work across gaming, across film, across comic books, across television.
Yeah.
So I went to Hollywood eventually, and I worked for Bill Duke and the Duke Media Foundation, and then Duke Media, and then I still worked in gaming because I went to GDC every year. I got involved in gaming. That ended up being my career path. And then I found out that I didn't like Hollywood that much. Not because I don't like Hollywood, because the pitching of your idea is exhausting. You have to pitch to everybody all the time. I'm not a very good salesman. That's not my strength. I'm a storyteller. I have the skill set, but I don't have the interest. It's like an introvert being in an extrovert's room for like more than 30 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
This, this is boring.
Yeah.
So I left and went to Phoenix. I got a film job teaching, and I started getting consulting calls for video game projects. And so, and then narrative design projects. And then I ended up having a career pretty similar to what I would have had if I stayed in Hollywood eventually anyway.
What was it like working with Bill Duke? I mean, that's not just a name you drop and you can just, experience and buy that. You know what I'm saying?
Duke is an absolute genius. He is in some ways one of the most forward-thinking people in the world. He's super fun. He's kind of like a dad now. He likes gangster stuff a lot. That's the funny part. He's like super sophisticated stuff, but when you pitch him ideas, there's always a gangster part that sweeps back into the discussion.
Yeah.
It's about girls picking berries, but taking care of their business. He's great. I've talked to him with the American Black Film Festival a couple of times. I've been speaking at his panels. I did a lot of pitches and worked in the studio for a little while, and then consulted about new media projects after that. He's pretty good. He's a pretty cool dude. He's very funny. And my brother.
Yeah.
To this day, I still have lunch with him and talk to him a couple times a year.
Cool.
But yeah, he's a good guy. I had a lot of fun working for Bill Duke. And I still have fun talking to him and being around him sometimes. I'm going to be speaking at DragonCon this year. He moved to Atlanta, so I'm hoping that I get to take lunch with him there.
Cool. And so the tie from the film to the gaming is the storytelling. I guess when you first were getting into gaming and then went to Hollywood, then back to gaming, what were your first projects? Like, what sort of ideas were you having? Because obviously you still were learning as you were, figuring ushering in this new generation. They have sort of an easier path, I guess you could say, because there's just more information. They can look YouTube, GPT, they can, reach out to people. But I mean, you didn't really have that sort of, you didn't have GPT to call on to. No. You didn't have like YouTube to be able to self-teach yourself videos. YouTube wasn't really popping like that way back then.
Good question. So let's separate it out. There's skills, there's management, and there's information for ideas. The skills I was learning, the management team I wasn't really good at yet. But I had an advantage over almost everybody else. I had an English degree. The information I had more than almost anybody. I read more than most people had ever read. I could call up things story-wise most people didn't even know about. For instance, most people know The Wizard of Oz. I wrote 10 books. I had to read all the books. So like when I'm thinking about, well, let's look at a Wizard of Oz idea. I can think about all the stuff that came later. The actual world building part I was better at than most people because I had so many references to literature. That most people that went to film school did not have because they went to film school from high school and I didn't. I went to film school after college. That was the first part. So even though I was a little bit handicapped in the skills part starting out, I could have conversations about filmmaking. And I watched films. My whole family's filmmaking people, like film watching people. My mother made me watch Wizard of Oz when I was 2.
Okay.
Like I went to Star Wars when I was 1. She was in theater as a baby, like, you're going to watch this movie. I was the kind of kid who watched all the Star Wars, then watched all the making of the Star Wars, then read the books about Star Wars, and then read the comic books about Star Wars, then read the encyclopedia about Star Wars, and the highlight Star Wars TV guide was coming. Like, that's the kind of kid I was when I was 10, you know? But back then, in the 80s, that wasn't a thing people cared about. So you did it, but it wasn't like, it was like, wow, you're really interested in stuff.
Yeah, right.
You know, like, you're like, that's something.
Yeah, because I'm a 90s kid. I didn't read that much, but I was more of a reader than my peers. And it wasn't like a thing that was cool.
That was the part that I did not know the most because I grew up in a mixed neighborhood. In the early days, I was in a mixed neighborhood. So I thought all kids watched Star Wars. Why wouldn't they watch Star Wars? Like, I was confused when I got to Black neighborhood. They were like, what are you talking about? We'll do that. It's not cool. Like, what's cool to do with it? That's Star Wars. Exactly. I understand. Yeah. So my lucky part was I entered film school in 2000. Phantom Menace came out in 99. So the film landscape now was Phantom Menace, Matrix, Harry Potter was coming out, and eventually Lord of the Rings. So these transmedia franchises were also happening. DVDs were out. I could buy Lord of the Rings and watch all the films.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And like, you know what I'm saying? So there were always like really like extra lessons I could do that if I gone in the 90s, I wouldn't have had access to. You know? Like, so yeah. So just like kids today, I was super researching everything. So by the time I got to 2005, I knew what I was doing technique wise. Now I was trying to put a team together, which is much more difficult. And that takes much more training.
For sure. Just kind of give a rundown of the games you have worked on, or, you know, just kind of give us a big picture idea of the stories you've worked on, things like that.
Worked on Dragon Age Railguard. It just came out recently. I worked on Street Fighter 6. I worked on Need for Speed Unbound. I worked on Wildflowers, which is there's a mobile game. One game of the year for mobile. I'm actually pretty proud of that.
Oh.
I wasn't involved in that as everybody else was, but I liked that game. It was cool. And then I worked on a lot of indie projects before that.
So what would you say has been like, you know, the lessons you've learned as, you know, learning how to put together a team and knowing that you got the skills and things like that? Like, what has been your growth as far as, you know, 20 plus years in, or however long it is you've been, got all this wealth of knowledge and whatnot? Sort of, what do you say is like the things you've really picked up on?
All right. Think about being a servant-based leader. This is what I mean. The byproduct of becoming a volunteer was GDC has this really group of CA, it's called Conference Associate program, which you get this like really good training about how to be a volunteer. And it's a servant-based leadership model. Whereas you work to serve people that would normally think below you, but that's not what it is. The customer is the highest. Everyone else serves that goal, not the reverse where the customer's at the bottom and the CEO's at the top.
That funnel split.
Yeah. So I kind of read a couple of principles like roll by. One is if I don't know what I'm about, I volunteer for it all the time. So like let's say I want to understand music more, because I worked as a sound engineer my first year out of college. Let's say the best way to learn sound engineering is to go volunteer to help somebody that does sound engineering.
Yeah.
You do it. Not read about it. Just say, hey, you got an event. Can I volunteer work for free for a couple of events? Because watching them work on the event teaches you how to work on the event. And you have conversations through fire and pain, which you won't have if you just go to the event.
Right.
And so I think the mistake most people make is they don't want to help somebody else when they're trying to become where they want to become. They're too busy trying to become what they want to become. It actually works inversely. The more you help other people when you're trying to do something, the more resources you actually get to yourself. But people want to be at the end of the journey. They don't want to go through the journey.
Right.
So what I always say is go volunteer. A lot of people do events all around the country. And every event needs more people. If you have the time and you're going to go anyway, call them and say, hey, do you need any help? Go early. Say, do you need help? I have numerous stories about being in the room by accident because I'm there early.
Yeah.
And I end up helping them doing something. The second one I would say is don't be transactional. It's the biggest mistake I make in entertainment. I see in entertainment all the time. And that's why I like being a teacher. Teaching's not transactional. Transactional means that you see every encounter as something that you benefit from. When you do that with people, you create what feels like an unsafe environment to them. And you don't know you're doing that. This is what I mean. I come up to you, I want to make country music, right? I'm like, 2-4, man. On the game, man, you know, like, what are you working on right now? What are you doing? I'm super friendly, blah, blah, blah. And you say, yeah, I'm working on this new album, man. It's great. It's with the Clef. Like, okay, great. And I'm like, oh yeah, well, I'm a country person. He's like, yeah, well, Wyclef, he's not doing that right now. He's doing reggae. And you're like, oh, it was a great meeting for change. Thanks, man. Here's my car. That's a transactional relationship. I listened to see if you could help me. I assessed if you couldn't help me. And then I walked away because you don't bring anything beneficial to me. Or I only help you. The inverse of that is I only help you if I think it benefits me.
Right.
Now, Wyclef has made country albums. Right? He's grown up on it. But because I'm transactional, I would not find that out because I haven't spent any time doing any of the work because I'm just like, do you help me? No. Now, some people, that's how they network. They try to get to the room of 1,000 people as fast, but it does not build relationships. It only builds, like, I know that dude. Like, that's all it builds. It builds that. And so if you're not transactional, you have genuine conversations. You have genuine understandings. Hey, what's going on? How's your family? Like, and so that builds rapport over time. And so you might not benefit from that year, but you might benefit from 4 or 5 years after that, and not even know how. So that's the part that I be genuinely help people.
So what would you say is, obviously you've been in the film, you've done the games, now you're teaching. How has that been a different evolution off of the other stuff that you're doing? A lot of people don't take those different jumps, although it does seem that more and more people are starting to get in the classroom, whether it be, I'm talking from music perspective, from gaming perspective in general. It's just sort of different things weren't really things not even 5 to 10 years ago. Things are progressing in a very interesting way, in my opinion. How is teaching, and what are you teaching for one, and sort of like how is all of that sort of come together?
I run a program in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I teach film, animation, screenwriting, game design at different levels. Although animation's a very, 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 very entry level class for middle schoolers. I can't really say I'm an animator. I know the principles of teaching animation. It's great. I mean, I like where I work, and teachers are not transactional. So like it's a fun environment. I love my coworkers very much. Here's what I figured out in the last 4 or 5 years. There is a mistake kind of everybody makes. When I say it, you're going to see the same mistake. Let's say you have a friend, you have any friends who are actors, actresses?
That tried.
That tried. Okay. Perfect. Right. So if they move to LA and we're auditioning every day, and he had to make ends meet by bartending or being a waitress or driving an Uber or whatever those jobs are, people are like, I like your hustle. I love what you're doing. Keep working, keep struggling. You get there one day and they'll be all this meeting, right? And then if it didn't work and they went home, they're like, okay, you tried to make it, but I saw what you did. Let's say the same person was an accountant or doing something like engineering, but they went to LA and they were doing that during the day, and then they were acting at night. People would say, why are you acting at night? You got a good job.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? What's that about? They're doing the thing in the morning to make ends meet to do the thing at night, right? But for some reason, acting is looked at as a step down from an actual steady job, but look at a step up from a job that's not quite as steady. Still honorable, but not quite as steady. The weird dynamic, right? So once I realized that people in the film industry and the video game industry didn't always have steady work, there was always an in-between period where they had to do something else, right? Real estate, crypto, whatever the hustle is.
Yeah, exactly.
They're still not doing it all the time, Even people that are super successful in Hollywood have to pitch for their next deal, their next movie. So there's the unsteadiness in the industry that is steady. So why do I feel bad if I have a steady job, still doing the thing I want to do? That's when I changed. When I realized that, I was super happy, because now I wasn't doing it instead of Hollywood. I was doing it in addition to Hollywood. And under the same technology and the same ideas and goals, right? I'm learning film every day. I'm learning more and more. I'm actually trying to do Unreal all the summer because they just updated the product. I have to learn for school. I wouldn't be forced to do that in LA. I could just sit on my laurels and try to pitch another script to somebody.
Right.
So my point would be is, if you look at your job as addition to and not in competition, it changes the way you can do the addition. Like that's what you're doing right now. You're still an artist, right? You still do your music.
Yeah. I got a regular job. Like you said, I don't think I've ever been in a mindset where I haven't had something else going on outside of the, the passion or whatever it is that I wanted to do anyway. Like I was always doing something else. So now would I like to get out of that job and do this full time? Sure. But even if that was the case, I probably still would be doing something else.
Right. Like you just pick the thing you like the most.
Yeah,
like you
exactly.
And I think that's the part that people get confused about, because validation is a real
for sure.
And the looking for validation part can confuse your goals. If you don't try to get validated by it, you try to be successful at it. It's very different than if you want people to be like, you did a good job, man. I'm proud of you.
What's the next step for you? Like, is there anything else that you want to do?
Creator next.
Okay.
Creator is the one that it's the mountain, right? Like it's okay. I've helped everybody else. I've helped Karen Hunter and narrative and doing Nubia and all that stuff. I've worked on that stuff, which is a whole educational thing. I've, helped a lot of kids get into the industry. I've helped people, but I have not got my own IP, my own property out to the space. The next 3 years are about doing that, like getting my stuff to people to read and see. And that's going to be my next, I have basically 5 or 6 really good franchise models I want to put together.
Okay.
And that's what I'm kind of singularly focused on getting done. That's kind of like my mantra. I got to get this done because I came here to do these things. I'll never do the things. Everybody else got fed, but I didn't fulfill the purpose I was here for.
Right. Gotcha. Talk a little bit about the Black and Gaming Awards and sort of how you came up with the creation of that. You talked a little bit about what it means. How did you get that started? Obviously, there was a need for something like that to be out there, so what gave you the mindset of say, hey, I ain't seen this. I'm going to go create this, do this, that, and the third. How did you sort of set that up?
Black and Gaming was something Kevin Brown created at Microsoft. They would do an event every GDC, and we would go. It was cool and real nice. And then he was working together with a guy named Joe Salter. Joe Salter was running the IGDA Diversity Special Interest Group for the International Game Development Association. And so this particular GDC, they invited Gerald Lawson to the GDC, which I had never heard of at the time. Gerald Lawson invented the cartridge, the original cartridge, like the one that we used, that our licenses. He was a Black inventor in the 70s. He created a concept called the Fairchild F. And he was in the same homebrew group with Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. And Nintendo, all them licenses software, all licenses hardware later on. He was in a wheelchair. But he talked about how the first software designed, they went to teachers and they learned game design from teachers because teachers do not engage students for long periods of time. And so you met him. I was kind of ashamed, right? Because all this Black history knowledge, all this research I had done for my own game, I assumed I was going to be the first Black company that did a video game. And that wasn't even true. He was around when I was I was greatly humbled by him and taken back. He passed away the following year. He died a year later. It touched me in a way that I don't talk about very much. At that time, I'm going to call there were like a number of Black, I would call luminaries at the time. There were other folks in the game industry as long as these people, and it's important. They didn't come to GDC, or I didn't meet with GDC very often at that point. So the ones that I had knows, this is now year 5 or 6, me on GDC, 7, 8. They were starting to retire because they had been in the game industry 10, 20, 30 years.
Right.
There was a guy, Jeff, at one of the computer graphics companies.
Okay.
And when I met him, I was like, what do you work on? He's like, oh, I do this little graphic. And like, he shows me the Stargate graphic. The Stargate, when you go through the graphic, like the wormhole. Like, he's like, I did that. They called us and I was like, yeah. And I just came with this thing and it's like, you invented the Stargate graphic and you're like talking about it like it's nothing.
Yeah.
He was retiring. And then Kevin was leaving Microsoft soon. So I was in a phone call with some of the Black and Gaming people because this was like that kind of volunteer organization. And I was like, we should create an award for Jerry Lawson so that he'll be remembered, because if you create an award, that name, that reward becomes a legacy. Like they have to know who they are and know what the award is. And they were like, we don't have the resources, Carl. We don't have the resources. They just said, we don't have the bandwidth to do that. So 2 years later, the IGA SIG went away. And so the director asked me to create a Black and Game SIG in its place. So I created the Black and Game SIG, which is separate from the Black and Gaming organization. But that was just an IGA thing. So, you complain to your friends, if I could get to the award show.
Yeah.
And I had a friend named Cheryl, shout out to Cheryl Chen. She had just got a job at Google. And she was like, Carl, you want to do your game award next year? Are you doing it during DDC? I was like, yeah, I do it at night. I'll do a luncheon. He was like, okay. And she got me in some kind of call. She was like, okay, Carl wants to do a GDC thing for Black and Gaming. And we have money for doing events. We're going to put money at his event. And so he just gave me a couple $1,000, like, do this event. And I was like, okay, yeah, like, dude, still not knowing still kind of halfway know what I was doing, but not really. Right. And I had done events, but the award show. Yeah. So,
you don't know what you don't know.
So at that time, there was like 2 people that were kind of like in these articles that no one had knew. Jerry Lawson was one of them. Ed Geary, he also was a Black guy that worked with games in the 80s, but no one knew who he was. So I called him. I found his article and found the forum. And I hit him in the forum, like, if anybody knows who this dude is, hit me. And the guy texted me. I called Joe and I was like, hey, do you know Gerald Lawson? his kids, you know, his kids. He's like, yeah. He's like, I want to talk to one of them. Karen called me. She's like, okay, so what do you want? I'm like, well, you know, I heard about your dad. Now, mind you, no one knew about Gerald Lawson. Not really, not outside of the things that happened. No one knew who he was. He had not really taken root. I said, this is what I want to do. You know, she and I had a GC before. I was like, I really want you to do this award show. And I think we need to make an award for your dad. We need to name it after him and make a lifetime achievement. She was very skeptical, but she was like, okay, I'll come. So we had the award show. So Nicole Bradford, at that time, she was a Black woman running Blizzard China's studio. She was doing Warcraft. I was like, Jeff's going to leave. No one knows he did Stargate. Nicole's going to leave. No one knows she ran Blizzard. You know, like all these Black folks. It's happening again. So the first 5 award shows we had, and there was a girl at Microsoft who I know her name. I can see her face. She was kind of a new star. We gave them all awards. It was really nice, but it wasn't big. It was kind of small. The next year, the other part of my role in Black Game SIG was I ran a Black Game Roundtable at GDC. Somebody came up and said, hey, I want to help you out. And so then, not for the award show, just like Black Gaming in general, which she assumed everything was the same. She assumed the SIG was the same. She assumed the group, which they were separate. So the next year, we co-sponsored a panel alongside GDC. So it was like next door. And it was a panel of the best Black luminaries. Great time, great event. I was not overwhelmed. I was out teaching. There's on the side, like Game and Award show, panel meetings. I was new dad, you know, like I was losing my stuff, man. I called them and I was like, hey, can I just piggyback our event off of yours? So you do all the logistics of the event. I have to get a location. Google had changed locations, so I had to find a venue. It was nuts. So they said, yeah. So I did the award show first, which none of them knew about because the year before it was small. Karen came back and all of them found out who Gerald Lawson was because Karen was there. And I gave Gordon Bellin the Lifetime Achievement Award from USC, who he worked on Madden. And Gordon gave one of the greatest speeches. It was like 45 minutes, supposed to be 5. One of the great speeches of all time. And after the event was over, a woman walked up to me. She's like, my name is Davina Mackey. I'm from PlayStation. I'm like, hey, how are you, Davina? And she's like, what you did here was good. I can make it great. And so from that point on, Sony got involved and they just elevated the whole thing. We got the custom award, we got the venue. It just became a thing, you know? And so that's how it happened.
That's dope. Like, that sort of feeds into what you were saying about there's no way you could have seen that coming down the line. There's absolutely no way you could have seen how that would have snowballed into that. I wonder why that's the case, or I wonder how we can make that less of the case. You see what I'm saying? Like
the game we talked about, I talked about several times this weekend, actually, Games for Change. The reason that is because gaming talent drives every other industry and every other entertainment. In music, the talent personality drives the record. In film, the actors drive the record. Television, the actors drive the record. In gaming, there is no talent first. The idea comes from creators, right? And then, I mean, it comes from the people that make the game. That's a job. It's not really, they're not really sorry. They don't really, and like gaming has kind of a little bit of reclusive tendencies. People that play games tend to be shy. So like, you don't have a star making machine that can use that to their advantage, right? So that's part of it, is that remember, most games in the 80s were made by programmers. Programmers are not people that want to be on stage.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So that's the first part. The second part is, I think we're doing better. There's clearly conferences that are uplifting that talent. I think there's 3 things I think that are going on in the Black community that are very difficult to understand. One is, what do parents support? This is really an interesting dynamic. How do we look at investing in people's career paths? For instance, if you go to college, does that demand a certain expectation for when you graduate to have a certain kind of degree? If you don't go to college, is there more empathy about you doing something untraditional but being successful at it? If you don't do what your parents want you to do, are they okay with that? Can they still support you? Gaming is unique because until the involvement of AI, you had to get advanced training to be in gaming. You cannot just do it in your basement. You can't do it. Has too many moving parts. It's very difficult, and you will not get at the level you want to get the attention you want.
Right.
You can do an indie game, but by and large, that's not going to get the kind of attention you want. I'm not knocking your games. I like them. I think they're great. But if your best friend is on American Idol and you're doing an indie game, it's the same way. Yeah. So that's the first part. The second part is we need to create our own Black distribution hub of some kind. I don't know what it is. I might do it. I might not. Where do you go to see the Black stuff? What makes sense if rather than like have like 16 different like Black GPT, we should all just pay one fee. Every Black American should pay $20 to somebody, right? And that gives us everything we want: technology, games, or like how many are in the United States? 30 million of us. We created like a $600 million fund that funded all the Black cool stuff. Like that, we don't talk about how much money drives creativity, and not as a reward, but as the idea iteration. That's why hip hop worked. Hip hop worked because once you got your turntable and you got mics, you didn't have to ask anybody about the content. You could just make it and make it and make it and make it. So it got good enough to be heard. And once it got heard, the audience decided to like it or not. So I think there are like maybe 5 to 10 Black movies in the 80s, the whole decade. Like when you look at the decade of the 80s, all right, you have like probably 5 to 10 Black movies. Take out Eddie Murphy, because he has his own.
I was gonna say he has a bunch of them.
That's it. Maybe Cosby. We're on television a lot.
Yeah.
We're not in movies because the way movies are funded are by the ideas they side can go. We're in movies, but they're not Black movies. Carl Weathers is in a bunch of stuff. You know, there are other movies that period in time, the creativity was determined by who paid for the movie. That's not me being mean. I'm saying.
I mean, it makes sense. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, the people that got the money, they ideas is the one that's gonna come to the forefront.
That's right. And they're going to pick the ideas they want. We had a number of great music artists, a number of great television shows, a number of things like that. We didn't notice how much we were at the box office. We're not at the box office because Hollywood's model had changed to a summer blockbuster. Because of that, you have to maximize the audience number. And a lot of them think that a Black person can't carry a movie. That was what the thought was. And so that means that the person paying the money determined who was the star of the film. That's the point of what I'm trying to make. It wasn't by creativity. And so now we think of the 80s and go, well, Robert Townsend did a Hollywood Shuffle. And Eddie Murphy was like Will Smith had been a television star, you know? So like Denzel was amazing, but he was in Glory. I think he was in Cry Freedom, and then Spike Lee movies. It's really important that we understand how the gift of AI might be that it removes the money person that's being a creative gatekeeper.
And I mean, like you said, I hadn't really thought of an idea like that. Just one hub where you can find everything, like Amazon for Black folks. That's interesting. Give us a rundown to close out of what you got working here pretty recent that you want to discuss.
I'd say my next 4 projects or the docket: Strain Breakers, soldiers trying to protect people from a werewolf virus happening in the apocalypse. That's what's a fun one. The other one is called Never Wonder, and that's a retelling of the Wizard of Oz, Peter Pan, and Alice Wonderland is the same story in the same universe.
Dope.
The Last MC, which is a mythology based entirely on hip hop. So it takes all hip hop terminology and turns it into mythology. So I've got that figured out, but the writing is massive. It's a really big story. I have all 7 seasons written out. Just put it into what medium I want to, but that's gonna be great. It's like kind of like Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Gotcha.
But it's one of my favorite things I've ever worked on. One of the characters comes from the original game I created. One character from the original game that survived all these years. That one I'm pretty proud of. And then, so that if my friends ever watch this, it's Makar. Makar makes it to the story. Makar is my original first character idea of anything I ever wanted to create. It's an immortal. A lot of folks have read stuff about Makar and different things I've done, and they're like, "Where's Makar?" Okay. And then there's a IDB Wells story that I'm probably going to finish by the end of the year. idea was as a detective. Like what I'm really interested in this idea because Langston Hughes actually worked in Chicago.
Okay.
So the idea that Langston Hughes was an idea was for a detective team is really fascinated me for a while. The difficulty with that property has been trying to figure out like who he saw cases for. Like because most lynchings didn't have like money. Figuring out the format of that has been really interesting. I my mother is a big, I told she like indoctrinated me in film when I was young. She's a mystery person. She watched every single mystery show ever created. So that's been fun working with my mom. So how do I figure out, who's the person we should talk about with this? Figure out the style of detective and how I do that. That's really cool. So that's the first 4 I'll have done. And there's 3 more, but I'm going to leave those to the backside. I'm actually working on a site, but I haven't got it redone yet. If you're looking for me on Instagram, I think I'm just Carl Varnado on Instagram. Most people would be on LinkedIn because I'm mostly professional situations. Instagram is probably, if you want to get to me, the easiest. LinkedIn is probably one I use the most.